Phoebe, off. They think they're playing. Phoebe, off. Good girl. Come here. That is not for you. Come here. That is not for you. Come here. Sit. Sit. Phoebe, sit. You need to not jump on my table. Okay? That is not for you to play. The table is not your space.
Oh, that's not bad.
All right, go play. No, go get your pom-pom. No, go get your toy. You're not getting no, you're not getting these. Go play. Your toy is over there. Phoebe, your toy is over. Somebody find the pom-pom.
Out there.
Go get it.
No. Really?
Yes.
Fucking
really.
move.
Watch your mouth.
Baby.
Taking my head out.
Stop.
Donna.
Yeah. Thank you. I didn't know she got a hold of that. Nope. 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 Down. Off. Down. Good girl. Where's your pom-pom? Where's your pom-pom? Go get it. We're going to have a little time of let's argue with Puppy before we start. Hi, Harley. No. What do you want? Oh, you want your back itched. Okay. That feel better? That feel better? Does that feel better? I got to itch your butt. Rotties love their hind end itched. Huh. Yeah, she's big. She's a big girl, huh? The chair. Go see Dad. Go see Dad. All right, I'm going to read for a while. So, we're going on to part 3. Who is that, Ty? No.
Well, bitch is that her. She acts like a freaking...
Ow! Ow! That's what he does. He sounds like he's saying, hello, hello, feed me. I'm the only cat that needs fed, you know. Hi.
He acts like her second boyfriend.
Right? Did you feed the cats? Oh, you did? Tonight? Did you feed Lady? He got all the cats but Lady. He fed them around 7. You might want to thank him. Are you putting them all in there?
I'm trying to figure out like Halloween.
Oh yeah, black and orange.
Well, I did orange.
Maybe some green. The light green is good for Halloween because it's like glowy eyes. Yeah.
It's like I try to do things that go with colors like.
What do you want?
Blue and
What?
red
Oh my God.
Christmas.
Are you gonna stand here the whole time wanting itched? She's so mean. Let me read.
Some kind of like green or bright colors for spring.
Mm-hmm. Right. We have a dry erase board that we put people's work schedules on so that we know who's working what, so we can figure it all out. What? Do I have to stand here and pet you the whole time? She's got her mouth going, yes you do, yes you do, yes you do. And then she'll stick out her tongue. The whole time I'm itching her back, she's going.
I schedule for next week.
Come here. Come here. Come here. Hi.
I'm gonna get this for October.
Do you need to go outside? Nick, you want to open the door, see if they need to go up?
Maybe
I found her pom-pom. Go outside. Go on. Go outside. Oh, she wants outside. Maybe I'll get 5 minutes of peace, huh? Tonight we are on part 3, The American West, Legendary Shadows. And this looks like it's quite a nice big chapter, so... This is chapter 1. So part 3, chapter 1. Holy shit, Steve said. This is amazing. Oh, I like that. Make sure you put people's schedules up. Outside at the end? I mean, where's the schedule?
Mom?
Oh, so you left September at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Mom.
Yes.
Who said Michelle? You know.
She doesn't come till the 12th.
12, as in...
Will you please write the 12th Michelle game?
What?
Can you write that for me?
Why?
Because she's going to park in the driveway the 12th, so we just need to know schedules. Move, please, so I can see your sister. Michelle. Stone. You can even put Stone if you want
Wait,
instead
you
of
mean
Michelle.
you mean the school teacher?
Yes, she's going to use the driveway again.
For
Her game.
football game.
Her son's got
See,
you and your brother. She wants to see you when she comes.
for
To say hello.
oh right,
She hasn't seen you. You're 22 already, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, when was the last time you saw her? It's been a while, huh?
yeah.
Yeah. She found some more pictures.
What?
Yeah, she found some more pictures, and she even found some of your brother.
Okay.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
And she doesn't know my birthday has passed.
Yes, she does. Yep. Yep, we were talking about that.
Cats.
Okay, can I read now? Holy shit, Steve said. This is amazing.
Mom.
Fucking weird is what it is, Cynthia
Join us on the
replied.
stairs.
That's fine. Cynthia replied, then looked around to see if she had offended the old man. Billingsley was nowhere in sight. Young lady, Johnny said, weird is the mosh pit, the only invention for which your generation can so far take credit. This is not weird. This is rather nice, in fact. Weird, Cynthia repeated, but she was smiling. Johnny guessed that the American West had been built in the decade following World War II, when movie theaters were no longer the overblown Xanadus they had been in the 20s and 30s. But long before malling and multiplexing turned them into Dolby-equipped shoeboxes, Billingsley had turned on the pin spots above the screen, and those in what once would have been called the orchestra pit, and Johnny had no trouble seeing the place. The auditorium was big, but bland. There were vaguely Art Deco electric wall scones, but no other grace notes. Most of the seats were still in place, but the red plush was faded and threadbare and smelled powerfully of mildew. The screen was a huge white rectangle upon which Rock Hudson had once clinched with Doris Day, across which Charleston Heston had once matched chariots with Stephen Boyd. It had to be at least 40 feet tall and 20 feet high. Or 40 feet long and 20 feet high. Good God, that's a bigger screen than my house. From where Johnny stood, it looked the size of a drive-in screen. There was a stage area in front of the screen, a kind of architectural held over. I don't know what a holdover is, Johnny assumed, since Vaudeville must have been dead by the time this place was built. Had it ever been used? He supposed so. For political speeches or high school graduations, maybe. And for the final round of the Cowshit County Spelling Bee. Whatever purposes it had served in the past, surely none of the people who had attended those quaint country ceremonies could have predicted this stage's final function. He glanced around, a little worried about Billingsley now, and saw the old man coming down the short, narrow corridor which led from the bathrooms to the backstage area, where the rest of them were clustered. Old fellow's got a bottle stashed. He went back for a quick snort, that's all, Johnny thought. But he couldn't smell fresh booze on the old guy when he brushed past. And that was a smell he never missed now that he had quit drinking himself. Yes.
Maybe on Sunday?
We'll have to wait and see. Okay?
Okay.
We'll wait and see. Okay? Pinky promise. All right. Yes, you should be able to do it.
You mean, how much do I have left?
I don't know until we get paid, okay? I'll do what I can, all right? Okay.
If I have enough, I can buy this.
Mm-hmm.
But before 1 week and 1 day, 1 week is like
Try Friday.
Friday?
Friday.
For you?
When is the 1st?
Yeah.
Sunday, right?
Yeah, we're there.
So that means we get paid Friday.
Oh, you do win.
So we'll talk about it Friday.
I mean, this Friday or
Yes, this Friday.
let me see.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 4 days. Okay? All right?
Or just let me
Okay,
see.
go play your game.
Let me see the calendar. Just for a moment.
Okay.
Third. The 30th, right?
Yes. Okay. The 29th.
29th?
Yeah, it's Friday.
Oh, I thought
30th
okay.
is Saturday.
Friday, the 29th.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
reading. You just put me in the dark, dude.
Hi.
They followed Billingsley out onto the stage. The group of people Johnny was coming to think of, and not entirely without affection, as the Collie Estrogen Survival Society, their feet clumping and echoing, their shadows long and pallid in the orchestra side lights. Billingsley had turned these on from a box in the electrical closet by the stage left entrance. Above the tatty red plush seats, the weak light petered out in a hurry, and there was only darkness ascending to some unseen height. Above that, and on all sides as well, the desert wind howled. It was a sound that cooled Johnny's blood, but he had not he could not deny the fact that there was also something strangely attractive about it. Although what that attraction might be, he didn't know. Oh, don't lie, Billingsley and his friends knew as well. That's why they came here. God made you to hear that sound, and a room like this is a natural amplifier for it. You can hear it even better when you sit in the front of the screen with your old pals, throwing legendary shadows and drinking to the past. That sound says quittin' is okay. That quittin' is in fact the only choice that makes any sense. That sound is about the lure of emptiness and the pleasures of zero. In the middle of the dusty stage, and in front of the curtainless screen, was a living room. Easy chairs, sofas, standing lamps, a coffee table, even a TV. The furniture stood on a big piece of carpet. It was a little like a display in the home living section of a department store. But what Johnny kept coming back to was the idea that if Eugene Ionesco had ever written an episode of The Twilight Zone, the set would probably have looked a lot like this. Dominating the decor was a fumed oak bar. Johnny ran a hand over it as Billingsley snapped on the standing lamps, one after the other. The electrical cords, Johnny saw, ran through small slits in the lower part of the screen. The edges of these ribs had then been mended with electrical tape to keep them from widening. Billingsley nodded at the bar. That came from the old Circle Ranch, part of the Clayton Loving auction, it was. Buzz Hanson and me teamed together and knocked it down for $17. Can you believe it? Frankly, no, Johnny said, trying to imagine what an item like this might be in one of those precious little shops down in Soho. He opened the double doors and saw the bar was fully stocked. Good stuff, too. Not primo, but good. He closed the doors again in a hurry. The bottles inside called to him in a way the bottle of Beam he'd taken out of the owls had not. Ralph Carver sat down in a winged chair and looked out over the empty seats in a dazed hopefulness of a man who dares to think he may be dreaming after all. David went over to the television. Do you get anything on this? Oh, I see. He had spotted the VCR underneath. He squatted down to look at the cassettes stacked on top of it. Son, Billingsley began, then gave up. David shuffled through the boxes quietly. Sex-starved coeds, dirty debutantes, cockpit honeys, part 3, and then put them back. You guys watch these? Billingsley shrugged. He looked both tired and embarrassed. We're too old to rodeo, son. Someday, maybe you'll understand. Hey, it's your business, David said, standing up. I was just asking. Steve, look at this, Cynthia said. She stepped back, raised her arms over her head, crossed them at the wrists, and wiggled them. A huge, dark shape flapped lazily on the screen, which was dingy with several decades' worth of accumulated dust. Bro, not bad, huh? He grinned, stepping next to her, and placed his hands together out in front of him with one finger jutting out. An elephant, Cynthia laughed. Too cool. David laughed with her. It was an easy sound, cheerful and free. His father turned his head toward it and smiled himself. Not bad for a kid from Lubbock, Cynthia said. Better watch that, unless you want me to start in calling you Cookie again. She stuck her tongue out, eyes closed, fingers twiddling in her ears, reminding Johnny so strongly of Terry that he laughed out loud. The sound startled, almost frightened him. He supposed that, somewhere between Entrogen and the sundown, he had pretty much decided that he would never laugh again. Not at the funny stuff, anyway. Mary Jackson, who had been walking around the on-stage living room and looking at everything, now glanced up at Steve's elephant. I can make the New York City skyline, she announced. My ass, Cynthia said, although she looked intrigued by the concept. Let's see, David said. He was looking up at the screen as expectantly as a kid waiting for the start of the newest Ace Ventura movie. Okay, Mary said, and raised her hands with the fingers pointing up. Now, let's see. Give me a sec. I learned this summer camp, and that was a long time ago. What the fuck are you people doing? The strident voice startled Johnny badly, and he wasn't the only one. Mary gave a little scream. The city skyline, which had begun to form in an old movie screen, went out of focus and disappeared. Audrey Weiler was standing halfway between the stage left entrance and the living room grouping, her face pale, her eyes wide and hot. Her shadow loomed on the screen behind her, making its own image, all unknown to its creator, Batman's cloak. You guys are as insane as he is, you must be. He's out there somewhere looking for us right now. Don't you remember the car you heard, Steve? That was him coming back. But you stand here, with the lights on, playing party games. The lights wouldn't show from the outside, even if we had all of them on, Billingsley said. He was looking at Audrey in a way that was both thoughtful and intense. As if, Johnny thought, he had the idea he'd seen her somewhere before. Possibly in Dirty Debutantes. It's a movie theater, remember? Pretty much soundproof and lightproof. That's what we liked about it, my gang. Well, he'll come looking, and if he looks long enough and hard enough, he'll find us. When you're in desperation, there aren't that many places to hide. Let him, Ralph Carver said hollowly, and raised the Ruger 44. He killed my little girl and took my wife away. I saw what he's like as much as you did, lady. Let him come. I got some express mail for him. Audrey looked at him uncertainly for a moment. He looked back at her with dead eyes. She glanced at Mary, found nothing there to interest her, and looked at Billingsley again. He could sneak up. A place like this must have half a dozen ways in, maybe more. Yep, and every one is locked except for the ladies' room window, Billingsley said. I went back there just now and set up a line of beer bottles on the window ledge inside. If he opens the window, it'll swing in, hit the bottles, knock 'em over, smash 'em on the floor. We'll hear him, ma'am. And when he walks out here, we'll fill him so full of lead you could cut him up and use 'em for sinkers. He was looking at her closely as he uttered this grandiosity. Eyes alternating between her face, which was okay, and her legs, which were, in John Edward Marinville's humble opinion, pretty bookin' spectacular. She continued to look at Billingsley as if she had never seen a bigger fool. Ever heard of keys, old-timer? The cops have keys to all the businesses in these little towns. To open ones That's so. To the open ones, that's so, Billingsley replied quietly.
Just give me a
But the
minute.
American West hasn't been open for a long time. The doors ain't just locked, they're boarded shut. The kids used the fire escape to get in up front, and that ended last March when it fell down. Nope, I reckon we're safe here as anywhere. Probably safer than out on the street, Johnny said. Audrey turned to him, hands on her hips. Well, what do you intend to do? Stay here and amuse yourselves by making shadow animals on the goddamn movie screen? Take it easy, Steve said. You take it easy, she almost snarled. I want to get out of here. We all do. But this isn't the time, Johnny said. He looked around at the others. Does anyone disagree? It'll be insanity to go out there in the dark, Mary said. The wind's got to be blowing 50 miles an hour, and with the sand flying the way it is, he'll be apt to pick us off one by one. Well, what do you think's gonna change tomorrow when the storm ends and the sun comes out? Audrey said. It was Johnny she was asking, not Mary. I think that friend Entrogen may be dead by the time the storm ends, he said, if he's not already. Ralph looked over and nodded. David hunkered by the TV, hands loosely clasped between his knees, looking at Johnny with deep concentration. Why? Audrey asked. How? You haven't seen him? Mary asked her. Of course I have. Just not today. Today I only heard him driving around, walking around and talking to himself. I haven't actually seen him since yesterday. Is there anything radioactive around here, ma'am? Ralph asked Audrey. Was it ever like some sort of dumping ground for nuclear waste or maybe some weapons? Missile warheads or something? Because the cop looked like he's fallen apart. I don't think it was radiation sickness, Mary said. I've seen pictures of that and... Whoa, Johnny said, raising his hands. I want to make a suggestion. I think we should sit down and talk this out, okay? It'll pass the time, if nothing else, and an idea of what we should do next may come out of it. He looked at Audrey, gave her his most winning smile, and was delighted to see her relax a little, if not exactly melt. Maybe not all of the old charm had departed after all. At the very least, it will be more constructive than making shadows on the movie screen. His smile faded a little, and he turned to look at them. Audrey, standing on the edge of the rug, in her gawky, sexy dress. Give me just a second. Okay. He was looking for something. Let's see. Audrey standing on the edge of the rug in her gawky, sexy dress. David squatting by the TV. Steve and Cynthia now sitting on the arms of an overstuffed easy chair that looked like it might also have come from the old Circle Ranch. Mary standing by the screen and looking schoolteacherly with her arms folded under her breasts. Tom Billingsley, now inspecting the open upper cabinet of the bar, with his hands tightly clasped beneath his back. Ralph in the wing chair at the edge of the light, with his left eye now puffed almost completely shut. The Collie Entrogen Survival Society, all present and accounted for. What a crew, Johnny thought. Manhattan Transfer, in the desert. There's another reason we have to talk, he said. He glanced at the shadows bobbing on the curtainless movie screen. For a moment, they all looked at him like the shadows of giant birds. He thought of Entrogen, telling him buzzards farted. They were the only birds that did. Of Entrogen saying, oh shit, we're all beyond why you know that. Johnny thought that might well be the scariest thing anyone had said to him in his whole life, mostly because it rang true. Johnny nodded slowly, as if in agreement with some interior speaker, then went on. I've seen some extraordinary things in my life, but I have never had what I could in any way characterize as a supernatural experience until maybe today. And what scares me the most is the experience may be ongoing. I don't know. All I can say for sure is that things have happened to me in the last few hours that I can't explain. What are you talking about? Audrey sounded close to tears. Isn't what's happening bad enough without turning it into some kind of a campfire story? Yes, Johnny said, speaking in a low, compassionate voice that he hardly recognized. But that doesn't change things. I listen and talk better when I'm not starving to death, Mary remarked. I don't suppose there's anything to eat in this place, is there? Tom Billingsley shuffled his feet and looked embarrassed. Well, no, not a whole lot, ma'am. Mostly we come here in the evenings to drink and talk over the old days. She sighed. That's what I thought. He pointed vaguely across toward the stage right entrance. Marty Ives brought in a large bag of something a couple of nights ago. Probably sardines. Marty loves sardines and crackers. Yuck, Mary said, but she looked interested almost in spite of herself. Johnny supposed that in another 2 or 3 hours, even anchovies would look good to her. I'll take a peek. Maybe he brought in something else, Billingsley said. He didn't sound hopeful. David got up. I'll do it if you want. Billingsley shrugged. He was looking at Audrey again and seemed to have lost interest in Marty Ives' sardines. There's a light switch on the left just as you get off stage. Straight ahead, you'll see some shelves. Anything people brought in to eat, they most generally put it on those. You might find some Oreos too. You guys must have drank a tad too much, but at least you kept the minimum nutrition needs in mind, Johnny said. I like that. The vet gave him a glance, shrugged, and went back to Audrey Weiler's legs. She seemed not to notice his interest in them, or to care. David started across the stage and went back and picked up the .45. He glanced at his father, but Ralph was staring vacantly out into the house again, at red plush seats which faded back into the gloom. The boy put the gun carefully into his pocket of his jeans, so that only the handle stuck out, then started off stage. As he passed Billingsley, he said, Is there running water? This is the desert, son. When a building goes vacant, they turn the water off. Crud. I still got soap all over me. It itches. He left them, crossed the stage, and leaned into the opening over there. A moment later, the light came on. Johnny relaxed slightly, only realizing that he did that part of his mind had expected something to jump the boy, and realizing Billingsley was looking at him. What that kid did back there, the way he got out of that cell, that was impossible, Billingsley said. Then we must still be back there, locked up, Johnny said. He thought he sounded all right, pretty much like himself, but what the old veterinarian was saying had already occurred to him. Even a phrase to describe it had occurred to him. Unobtrusive miracles. He must have written it down in his notebook. He would have written it down in his notebook if he hadn't dropped it beside Highway 50. Is that what you think? No, we're here, and we saw him do what he did, Billingsley said. Greased himself up with soap and squeezed out through the bars like a watermelon seed. Looked like it made sense, didn't it? But I tell you, friend, not even Houdini could have done it that way. Because of the head. He should have stuck at the head, but he didn't. He looked them over one by one, finishing with Ralph. Ralph was looking at Billingsley now instead of at the seats. Johnny wasn't sure he understood what the old guy was saying, and maybe that was for the best. What are you driving at? Mary asked. I'm not sure, Billingsley replied, but I think we'd do well to kind of gather around young Master Carver. He hesitated, then added, The old-timers that any campfire does on a cold night. Part 2. It picked the dead coyote up and examined it. Soma dies, Numa departs, only Sarx remains. It said in a voice that was a paradox, both sonorous, and entirely without tone. So it has always been, so it always be. Life sucks, then you die. He carried the animal downstairs, paws and shattered head dangling, body swaying like a bloody fur stole. The creature holding it stood for a moment inside the main doors of the municipal building, looking out into the blowy dark, listening to the wind. Saka set, it exclaimed, then turned away and took the animal into the town office. It looked at the coat hooks to the right of the door and saw immediately that the girl, Pi, to her brother, had been taken down and wrapped in a drape. Its pale face twisted in anger as it looked at the child's covered form. Took her down, it told the dead coyote in its arms. Rotten boy, took her down. Stupid troublemaking boy. Yes, feckless boy, rude boy, foolish boy. In some ways, that last was the best, wasn't it? The truest. Foolish prey boy looking to make at least some part of it come right. As if any part of a thing like this ever could be. As if death were an obscenity that could be scoffed off life's wall by a strong arm, or scrubbed off life's wall by a strong arm. As if the closed book could be reopened and read again with a different ending. Yet its anger was twisted through with fear, like a yellow stitch through red cloth, because the boy was not giving up, and so the rest of them were not giving up. They should have dared to run from them, even if their cell doors had been standing wide open. Yet they had, because of the boy, the wretched, overblown, prideful, praying boy, who had had the insolence to take down the little cunt of a sister and try to give her something approximately a decent burial. A kind...
This thing right here keeps on glitching.
It's because the internet's glitching and it's not just ours.
So that means there must be a virus nearby.
No, probably that solar storm.
Solar storm?
Mhm.
What's that mean?
There's a solar storm. Like the sun threw out a flare and it's hit Earth and it's making electronics go boogie, boogie, boogie.
And how long is for the...
Hopefully by tomorrow it'll be better.
I want to play Marvels now.
Then play it on your phone.
I can't because my phone is at 25%.
Then charge it.
I can't because my phone charger is being stupid.
Nick?
Yeah?
Then close the game and start over.
I can't because look.
What?
I can't close it. It's because I played too much. Or it's server or something, see?
Oh, the whole thing froze. Oh, good gracious. What the heck?
That's why I want to don't trust technology.
Can't even get the power to come up. What the heck happened?
That need me for the TV, especially TV, to be in the closet, including the 360.
Well, leave this for a few minutes and let's let it go and see what happens. What was the charge on this?
What?
What was the charge on it?
78%?
Okay.
Maybe it's because it's...
No, it just went completely black.
Maybe it's because it's so flare.
I don't know. I can't even get it to turn on.
Let me see that.
No, I'm gonna plug it in and see what happens.
You need to plug in your phone, this thing, the long one. Trust me, that one can, because the dogs might chew on this thing.
No, they did not.
That means I have to charge mine.
This isn't even the right charger. Duh.
What?
That wasn't the right charger. This is the right one.
So that means I
Let
may
me plug
have
it in and see if it gives it anything. I don't know yet. Okay, so it's not doing anything.
I'll check mine.
Just leave it plugged in and let me see if it does anything, okay? I'm not sure what it's doing. All I know is it's being a pain in the ass. Something's wrong. Thing froze. I have to wait and see. Just nobody touch it. Nobody. Yet they had, because of the boy, the wretched, overblown, prideful, praying boy, who had had the insolence to take down the little cunt of a sister and try to give her something approximating a decent burial. A kind of dull warmth on its fingers and palms. It looked down and saw that it had plunged Ellen's hands into the coyote's belly all the way to the wrists. It had intended to hang the coyote on one of the hooks, simply because that was what it had done with some of the others. But now another idea occurred. It carried the coyote across to the green bundle on the floor, knelt, and pulled the drape open. It looked down with a silent, snarling mouth at the dead girl who had grown inside this present body. That he should have covered her. He put Ellen's hands, now dressed in lukewarm blood gloves.
Mom, look.
Yeah, it's not doing anything at the moment. All right, whatever it did, it must have restarted. So go ahead and try playing again, okay?
Doesn't work.
I don't know. I really don't know. Okay? I don't know. I just don't. It pulled Ellen's hands, now dressed in lukewarm blood gloves, out of the coyote and laid the animal down on top of Kirsten. It opened the coyote's jaws and placed them around the girl's neck. That was something both grisly and fantastic about this. I just have to have the hiccups right now. There was something both grisly and fantastic about this tableau de la mort. It was like a woodcut illustration from a black fairy tale. Talk, it whispered and grinned. Ellen Carver's lower lip split open when it did. Blood ran down her chin. In an unnoticed rill, the rotten, presumptuous little boy would probably never view this revision of his revision, but how nice it was to imagine his reaction to it if he did. If he saw how little his efforts had come to, how easily respect could be snatched back, how naturally zero reasserted itself in the artificially concocted integers of men. It pulled the drape up to the wolf's neck. Now the child and the beast almost seemed to be lovers. How it wished the boy was here, the father too, but especially the boy, because it was the boy who so badly needed instruction. It was the boy who was the dangerous one. There was scurrying from behind it, a sound too low to be heard, but it heard it anyway. It pivoted on Ellen's knees and saw the recluse spiders returning. They came through the town office door, turned left, then streamed up the wall, over posters announcing forthcoming town business and soliciting volunteers for this fall's Pioneer Days extravaganza. Above the one announcing an informational meeting at which Desperation Mining Corporation officials would discuss the resumption of copper mining at the so-called China pit, the spiders reformed their circle. The tall woman in the coverall and the Sam Brown belt got up and approached them. The circle on the wall trembled, as if expressing fear or ecstasy, or perhaps both. The woman put bloody hands together, then opened them to the wall, palms out. Allah! The circle dissolved. The spiders scurried into a new shape, moving with the precision of a drill team putting on a halftime show. T, they made, then broke up, scurried, and made an H, and an E, followed by an A, another T, another E. It waved them off while they were still scrambling around up there, deciding how to fall in and make an R. Eto, it said. Ross. Spiders gave up on their R and resumed their faintly trembling circle. Tena, it asked after a moment, and the spiders formed the new figure. It was a circle, the shape of the Eni. The woman with Ellen Carver's fingerprints looked at it for several moments, tapping Ellen's fingers against Ellen's collarbone, then waved Ellen's hand at the wall. The figure broke up. The spiders began to stream down to the floor. It walked back out into the hall, not looking at the spiders streaming above its feet. The spiders would be available if it needed them, but that was all that mattered. It stood at the double doors, once more looking out into the night. It couldn't see the old movie house, but that was all right. It knew where the old American West was, about 1/8 of a mile north of here, just past the town's only intersection. And thanks to the fiddlebacks, she now knew where they were as well, where he was, the shitting little prey boy. Part 3. Johnny Marinville told her his story again, all of it this time. Finally done. All of it this time. For the first time in a good many years, he tried to keep it short. There were critics all over America who would have applauded, partly in disbelief. He put them about stopping to take a leak, and how Entrogen had planted the pot in his saddlebag while he was doing it. He told them about the coyotes, the one Entrogen had seemed to talk to, and the others, posted along the road in intervals like a weird honor guard, and about how the big cop had beaten him up. He recounted the murder of Billy Rancourt, and then, with no appreciable change in his voice, about how the buzzard had attacked him, seemingly at Collie Entrogen's command. There was an expression of frank disbelief in Audrey Weiler's face at this, but Johnny saw Steve and the skinny little girl he'd picked up somewhere along the way exchanged a look of sick understanding. Johnny didn't glance around to see how the others were taking it. Nick! Dogs, please. Thank you. Johnny didn't glance around to see how the others were taking it, but instead looked down at his hands on his knees, concentrating as he did when he was trying to work through a tough patch of composition. He wanted me to suck his dick. I think that was supposed to start me gibbering, begging for mercy, but I didn't find the idea as shocking as Entrogen maybe expected. Cocksucking is a pretty standard sexual command in situations where authorities exceeded its normal bounds and restrictions. But it's not what it looks like. On the surface, rape is about dominance and aggression. Underneath, though, it's about fear-driven anger. Thank you, Dr. Ruth, Audrey said. Next, we will be discussing the imprudence. Johnny looked at her without rancor. I did a novel on the subject of homosexual rape. Tiburon. Not a big critical success, but I talked to a lot of people and got the basics down pretty well, I think. The point is, he made me mad instead of scaring me. But then I decided I didn't have a lot to lose anyway. I told him that I'd take his cock all right, but once I had it in my mouth, I'd bite it off, and then... He thought harder, than he had in the last 10 years, nodding to himself as he did. Then I threw one of his own nonsense words back at him. At least it seemed like nonsense to me, or something in a made-up language. It had a guttural quality. Was it talk? Mary asked. Johnny nodded. And it didn't seem to be nonsense to the coyotes or to Entrogen either. When I said it, he kind of recoiled, and that's when he called the buzzard bombing straight down on me. I don't believe that happened, Andre said. I guess you're a famous writer or something, and you've got to the look of a guy who isn't used to having doubt cast, so to speak. But I just don't believe it. It's what happened, though, he said. You didn't see anything like that strange, aggressive animal behavior? I was hiding in the town laundromat, she said. I mean, hello? Are you talking the same language here? Are we talking the same language here? But listen, you want to talk about strange and aggressive animal behavior? Audrey asked. She leaned forward, eyes bright and fixed on Marinville's. That's Collie you're talking about. Collie as he is now. He killed everyone he saw, everyone who crossed his path. Isn't that enough for you? Do we have to have trained buzzards as well? What about spiders? Steve asked. He and the skinny girl were in the chair instead of sitting on the arm now, and Steve had his arm around her shoulders. What about them? Did you see any spiders kind of, well, flocking together? Like birds of a feather? She was favoring him with a gaze of said caution lunatic at work. Well, no, wrong word. Traveling together, in packs, like wolves or coyotes. She shook her head. What about snakes? Haven't seen any of them either. Or coyotes in town? Not even a dog riding a bike or wearing a pretty party hat? This is all news to me. David came back onto the stage with a brown bag in his hands. The kind that convenience store clerks put small purchases in. Twinkies and Slim Jims, cartons of milk, single cans of beer. He also had a box of rich crackers under his arm. Found some stuff, he said. Uh-huh, Steve said, eyeing the box and the little bag. That should certainly take care of hunger in America. What does it come to, Davy? 1 sardine and 2 crackers apiece, do you think? Actually, there's quite a lot, David said. More than you'd think. He paused, looking at them thoughtfully and a little anxiously. Would anyone mind if I said a prayer before we hand this stuff around? Like Grace? Cynthia asked. Grace, yeah. Works for me, Johnny said. I think we can all use grace. I think we can all use all the grace we can lay our hands on. Amen, Steve said. David put the bag and the box of crackers down between his sneakers. Then he closed his eyes and put his hands together again before his face, finger to finger. Johnny was struck by the kid's lack of pretension. There was a simplicity about the gesture that had been honed by use into beauty. God, please bless this food we are about to eat, David began. Yeah, what there is of it, Cynthia said, and immediately looked sorry that she had spoken. David didn't seem to mind, though. Might not have even heard her. Bless our friendship, take care of us, deliver us from evil. Please take care of my mom, too, if it's your will. He paused, then said in a lower voice, It's probably not, but please, if it's your will, Jesus' sake, amen. He opened his eyes again. Johnny was moved. The kid's little prayer had touched him in a very place Entrogen had tried and failed to reach. Sure it did, because he believes it.
Peter, can I turn this light on?
No, I need the big light.
See?
What? It's probably the internet. I don't know.
I'm trying to press it, but
Give it to me.
feed me up.
She's not in the way. You're just being upset because you can't play your game.
That's why I want to charge my phone.
All right, there's something wrong with the system.
That's why I want to remove everyone's account except
No,
mine.
no. This is not your personal tablet. You do not get to delete anything. Okay, so stop. Those are all updated. Okay. Works at work.
Weird, right? So that means
Mm-hmm.
I have to wait
I
until my
don't
phone.
know. I don't know. I'm not sure why it's not letting you play like you want. But try again. Alright. Sometimes it just is overheated, you know? Give me the brush. Thank you.
I think I should sit on that.
Okay. Sure he did, because he believes it. In his own humble way, this kid makes Pope John Paul in his fancy clothes and Las Vegas hat look like an Easter and Christmas Christian. David bent over and picked up the stuff he'd found, seeming as cheerful as a soup kitchen tycoon presiding over Thanksgiving dinner as he rummaged into the bag. Here, Mary. He took out a can of blue Bajord fancy sardines and handed it to her. He's on the bottom. Thank you, David. He grinned. Thank Mr. Billingsley's friend. It's his food, not mine. He handed her the crackers. Pass 'em on. Take what you need and leave the rest, Johnny said expansively. That's what us friends of the circle say. Right, Tom? The veterinarian gave him a watery gaze and didn't reply. David gave a can of sardines to Steve and another to Cynthia. Oh, no, honey, that's okay, Cynthia said, trying to give hers back. Me and Steve can share. No need to, David said. There's plenty, honest. He gave a can to Audrey, a can to Tom, and a can to Johnny. Johnny turned his over twice in his hand, as if to try to make sure it was real, before pulling off the wrapper, taking the key off the back and inserting it into the tub of metal at the end of the can. He opened it, and as soon as he smelled the fish, he was savagely hungry. If anyone had told him he would ever have such a reaction to a lousy can of sardines, he would have laughed. Something tapped him on the shoulder. It was Mary, holding out the box of crackers. She looked almost ecstatic. Fish oil ran down from the corner of her mouth, with her chin in a shiny little runnel. Go on, she said. They're wonderful on crackers, really. Yep, Cynthia said cheerfully. Everything tastes better when it shits on a Ritz. That's what I always say. Johnny accepted the box, looked in, and saw there was only a single cylinder of wax paper left, half full. He took 3 of the round, dark orange crackers. His growling stomach protested this forbearance, and he found himself unable to keep from taking 3 more before passing the box to Billingsley. Their eyes met for a moment, and he heard the old man saying not even Houdini could have done it that way, because of the head. And of course, there was the phone. 3 transmission bars showing when it had been in the kid's hand, none at all when it had been in his own. This settles it at once and for all, Cynthia said, her mouth full. She sounded the way Mary looked. Food is way better than sex. Johnny looked at David. He was sitting on one arm of his father's chair, eating. Ralph's can of sardines lay in his lap, unopened, as the man continued to look out over the rows of empty seats. David took a couple of sardines from his own can, laid them carefully on a cracker, and gave them to his dad, who began to chew mechanically, doing it as if his only goal was to clear his mouth again. Seeing the boy's expression of attentive love made Johnny uncomfortable, as if he were violating David's privacy. He looked away and saw the box of crackers on the floor. Everyone was busy eating, and no one paid Johnny any particular attention when he picked up the box and looked into it. It was gone all the way around the group, or it had gone all the way around the group. Everyone had at least half a dozen crackers. Billingsley might have taken even more. The old goat was really cramming them in. But the cylinder of wax paper was still there, and Johnny could have sworn that it was still half full, that the number of crackers in it had not changed at all. You remember? Anybody remember the bread and fish? Yeah. Part 4. Ralph recounted the crash of the Carver family as clearly as he could, eating sardines between bursts of talk. He was trying to clear his head, trying to come back for David's sake more than his own. But it was hard. He kept seeing Kirsty lying motionless on the foot of the stairs. Kept seeing Entrogen pulling Ellie across the holding area by the arm. "Don't worry, David. I'll be back," she had said. But to Ralph, who believed he had heard every turn and lift of Ellie's voice in their 14 years of marriage, she sounded already gone. Still, he owed it to David to try and be here, to come back himself from wherever it was his shocked, overstressed, and guilty, yes, there was that too, mind wanted to take him. But it was hard. When he had finished, Audrey said, "Okay, no revolt from the animal kingdom at least, but I'm very sorry about your wife and your little girl, Mr. Carver. You too, David." "Thanks," Ralph said, and then David added, "My mom could still be okay." He ruffled the boy's hair and told him yes, that was right. Mary went next, telling about the baggie under the spare tire and the way Entrogen had mixed "I'm going to kill you" into the Miranda warning, and the way he had shot her husband on the steps completely without warning or provocation. Still no wildlife, Audrey said. This now seemed to be her central concern. She tilted her sardine can up to her mouth and drank the last of the fish oil without so much as a flicker of embarrassment. "You either didn't hear the part about the coyote he brought upstairs to guard us, or you don't want to hear it," Mary said. Audrey dismissed this with a wave of her hand. She was sitting down now, providing Billingsley with at least another 4 inches of leg to look at. Ralph was looking too, but he felt absolutely nothing about what he was seeing. He had an idea there was more juice in some old car batteries than there was in this emotional wiring right now. In his emotional wiring right now. "You can domesticate them, you know," she said. "Feed them Gainsburgers and train them like dogs, in fact." "Did you ever see Entrogen walking around town with a coyote on a leash?" Marinville said politely. She gave him a look and set her jaw. "No. I knew him to speak to, like anyone else in town, but that was all. I spend most of my time in the pit or the lab or out riding. I'm not much for town life." "What about you, Steve?" Marinville asked. "What's your tale?" Ralph saw the rangy fellow in the with the Texas accent exchange a glance with his girlfriend, if that's what she was, and then looked back at the writer. "Well, first off, if you tell your agent I picked up a hitchhiker, I guess I'll lose my bonus. I think you can consider him the least of your worries at this point. Go on, tell it." They both told it, alternating segments, both clearly aware that the things they had seen and experienced upped the ante of belief considerably. They both expressed frustration at their inability to articulate how awful the stone fragment in the lab storage area had been, how powerfully it had affected them, and neither seemed to want to come out or say what had happened when the wolf, they agreed that it was they agreed that that was what it had been, not a coyote, brought the fragment out of the lab and laid it before them. Ralph had had an idea it was something sexual, although what could be so bad about that, he didn't know. "Still a doubting Thomas?" Marinville asked Audrey when Steve and Cynthia had finished. He spoke mildly, as if he did not want her to feel threatened. Of course he doesn't want her to feel threatened, Ralph thought. There's only 7 of us. He wants us all on the same team, and he's really not too bad at it. "I don't know what I am," she sounded dazed. "I don't want to believe any of this shit. Just considering it freaks me severely. But I can't imagine why you'd lie." She paused, then said thoughtfully, "Unless seeing those people hung up in the Hernando's hideaway, I don't know, scared you so badly that That we started seeing things? Steve asked. She nodded. The snakes you saw in the house. That at least makes sense of a sort. They feel this kind of weather coming as much as 3 days in advance sometimes, and go for any sheltered place. As for the rest, I don't know. I'm a scientist, and I can't see how. Come on, lady, you're like a kid pretending her mouth is stitched shut so she won't have to eat the broccoli, Cynthia said. Everything we saw dovetails with what Mr. Marinville there saw before us, and Mary saw before him, and the Carvers saw before them, right down to the knocked over piece of picket fence where Entrogen greased the barber, or whoever he was. So quit the I'm a scientist crap for a while. We're all on the same page. You're the one that's on a different one. But I didn't see any of those things, Audrey almost wailed. What did you see? Ralph asked. Tell us. Audrey crossed her legs, tugged at the hem of her dress. I was camping. I had 4 days off. So I packed up Sally and headed north into the Cooper Range. It's my favorite place in Nevada. Ralph thought she looked defensive, as if she had taken a ribbing of this sort of behavior in the past. Billingsley looked as if he had just wakened from a dream. One of having Audrey's long legs wrapped around his scrawny old butt, perhaps. Sally, he said. How is Sally? Audrey gave him an uncomprehending look for a moment, then grinned like a girl. She's fine. Strain all better? Yes, thanks. It's a good ligament. Liniment. It was good liniment. Glad to hear it. What are you talking about? Marinville asked. I doctored her horse a year or so back, Billingsley said. That's all. Ralph wasn't sure he would let Billingsley work on his horse, if he had one. He wasn't sure he would let Billingsley work on a stray cat, but he supposed the vet might have been different a year ago. When you made drinking a career, 12 months could make a lot of changes, few of them for the better. Getting Rattlesnake back on its feet has been pretty stressful, she said. Lately, it's been the switchover from rainbirds to emitters. A few eagles died. A few, Billings said. Come now. I'm no tree hugger, and you can do better than that. All right, about 40 in all. No big deal in terms of the species. There's no shortage of eagles in Nevada, as you know, Doc. The Greens know it too, but they treat each dead eagle as if it were a boiled baby just the same. What it's really about, and all it's about, is trying to stop us from mining the copper. God, they make me so tired sometimes. They come back here in their perky little foreign cars, 50 pounds of American copper in each one, and tell us we're earth-raping monsters. Ma'am? Steve said softly. Pardon, but ain't a one of us folks from Greenpeace. Of course not. What I'm saying is that we all felt bad about the eagles, the hawks, and the ravens too, for that matter, in spite of what the tree huggers say. She looked around at them as if to evaluate their impression of her honesty, then went on. We leach copper out of the ground with sulfuric acid. The easiest way to apply it is with rainbirds. They look like big lawn sprinklers, but rainbirds can leave pools. The birds see them, come down to bathe and drink, and then die. It's not a nice death, either. No, Billingsley agreed, blinking at her with his watery eyes. When it was the gold they were talking about taking out of the China pit and the Satoya pit back in the 50s, it was cyanide in the pools, just as nasty. No greeny tree huggers back then, though. Must have been nice for the company, eh, Miss Weiler? He got up, went to the bar, poured himself a finger of whiskey, and swallowed it like medicine. Could I have one of those? Could I have one about the same? Ralph asked. Yes, sir. I believe you could, Billingsley said. He handed Ralph his drink, then set out more glasses. He offered warm, soft drinks, but the others opted for spring water, which he poured out of a plastic jug. We pulled the rainbirds, and place them with distribution heads and emitters, Audrey said. It's a drip system, more expensive than rainbirds, a lot, but the birds don't get into the chemicals. No, Billingsley agreed. He poured himself another tot. Then he drank more slowly, looking at Audrey's legs again over the rim of his glass. Part 5. A problem? Maybe not yet, but there could be, if steps weren't taken. The thing that looked like Ellen Carver sat behind the desk in the now empty holding area, head up, eyes gleaming lustrously. Outside, the wind rose and fell. From closer by came the pad click of paws ascending the stairs. They stopped outside the door. There came a coughing growl. Then the door swung open, pushed by the snout of a cougar. She was big for a female, perhaps 6 feet from snout to hunches, with a thick, switching tail that added another 3 feet to her overall length. That's a big cat. As the cougar came through the door and into the holding area, slinking low to the board floor, her ears laid back against her wedge-shaped skull, the thing cored into her head a little further, wanting to experience a bit of what the cougar was feeling, as well as to draw her. The animal was frightened, sorting through the smells of the place and finding no comfort in any of them. It was the human den place, but that was only part of her problem. The cougar smelled a lot of trouble here. Gunpowder, for one thing. To the cougar, the smell of fired guns was still sharp and acrid. Then there was the smell of fear, like a mixture of sweat and burned grass. Then there was the smell of blood, too. Coyote blood and human blood mixed together. And there was the thing in the chair, looking down at her as she slunk toward it, not wanting to go, but not able to stop. It looked like a human being, but didn't smell like one. It didn't smell like anything the cougar had ever scented before. She crouched by its feet and voiced a low, whining, mewing sound. The thing in the coverall got out of the chair, dropped to Ellen Carver's knees, lifted the cougar's snout, and looked into the cougar's eyes. Began to speak rapidly in that other language, the tongue of the unformed, telling the cougar where she must go, how she must wait, and what she must do when the time came. They were aimed and would likely kill the animal, but she would do her job first. Oh, they were armed and would likely kill the animal, but she would do her job first. As it spoke, Ellen's nose began to trickle blood. It felt the blood, wiped it away. Blisters had begun to rise on Ellen's cheeks and neck. Fucking yeast infection. Nothing more than that, at least to start with. Why was it some women simply could not take care of themselves? All right, it told the cougar. Go on now. Wait until it's time. I'll listen with you. The cougar made its whining, mewing sound again, licked with its rough tongue at the hand of the thing wearing Ellen Carver's body, and then turned and padded out of the room. It resumed the chair and leaned back in it. It closed Ellen's eyes and listened to the ceaseless rattle of sand against the windows and let part of itself go with the animal. So, architect. Hello. It's good. Let's see, what chapter are you on? Have you read this book before? Okay, so, I am actually on part 2. We're going into chapter 2, or part 3, chapter 2, excuse me. No, I haven't read the book before. Let's see, The Animal on My Wall. Wait. Oh, that's a horse. It's actually upside down. It's a blanket that I have over the window. And then unicorns up there. And I hit the gritty. What is the gritty? Any chat readers? Yeah, I read what happens. Yeah. So it's a lot that happens on the whole thing. It's how we get there. We only have this much left. We've read this much, but we have this much left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 more chapters, so we're excited. Yeah, no, I just when I'm he's not even still in the chat, is he? Nope. Oh well. I apologize. When I'm reading, I look up sometimes, but I don't really pay attention to chat a lot, and I do apologize. I have not read this book before, but I did read Regulators. So, that one goes hand in hand with this one because it's the same characters, just different parts that they play. And it's really kind of neat because one is Richard Bachman's, which is the Regulators, and then Desperation is Stephen King's. So we will do chapter 2 tomorrow. I kind of like doing chapter by chapter. It gives me an hour to read each chapter. So, I mean, I could sit all day and read. I really could. But I can't when I'm sitting in this chair. So, yeah, think about it. I was so going on that I did not look at the chat, and I do apologize. What I need to do is actually set up some mods to handle the chat. And I'm going to have to figure that out. So, I do apologize. Hopefully this person will come back so I can answer questions. So, let's see. Desperation by Stephen King. Into part 3. Chapter 2 just finished. Chapter 1. Animal on my wall is a horse blanket upside down. It blocks the dogs from seeing outside because they like to jump on my window and I don't like it. Can you hit the gritty? I don't know what that means. What is the gritty? Can you hit the gritty for me? I don't understand what that means. Does anybody else know what that means? What is the gritty? Anyway, we're gonna go and do that. So I went ahead and answered everything I could. Yeah, he kind of spoils it if anybody reads that. So, and that doesn't exactly say what happens because it doesn't say what happens to talk at the end, actually. There is a lot that happens. I have read the plot on Wikipedia, so it kind of gives me an idea of what we're looking at when I read a book. But just reading the plot does not give you all this other stuff that's in there. All the action, all the drama, all the thrill, all the horror, all the death, the destruction, the happiness, the joy, every possible reaction in a book. I mean, I have cried in this book, and I have left being frustrated with a chapter or frustrated with a character. That's a good thing. If you have a reaction to a book that you are reading, whether it's crying, angry, sad, disappointed, whatever, it's a good book. I left the regulators unhappy because two of my favorite characters, like two characters that I thought were awesome and, going through so much, something happened to them. And I was like, well, that sucks. And I almost screamed. I literally went, and my eyes are wide and I'm staring as I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my God, that's all my brain could think of. And I just was not happy with the way that it ended. But that's okay too, because that's the way you react to books. When you read, you get into the characters, you get into the scenes, you put yourself in there. If you open up your imagination, you can actually see we're in the desert. We're surrounded by sand. We've got all this howling and blowing and sand hitting and, tumbleweeds going across and all these sounds. And you hear the wolves and the cougars and the snakes and the spiders. And you can just imagine it. It gives you the willies. It gives you the creeps. It makes you, whatever. When you're dealing with a rat, you're going, oh, or going, just rip it off, or whatever you're feeling at that point, depending on the kind of person you are, you really get into liking these characters. It's kind of like somebody plays a part in a movie and you really like that character. And then whatever happens to that character really affects you. That's a good thing. It's your imagination going out and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. So, your brain is reacting and you're really enjoying it and it gets you into a different, I guess, yes.
Can I have a answer? Like, those.
Mhm. They're mini donuts. They're like small Twinkies covered in glaze with frosting in the center. Hyperness of this child. No matter you're going to feel, you're going to cry, you're going to laugh, you're going to, be angry, you're going to be happy, whatever it is. Don't be, afraid to have those emotions and show those emotions, because that tells you it's a good movie or it's a good book. I mean, I've been trying to read a Jane Austen book and my brain isn't letting me. So I might read one of those. Just so I read it out loud. Tomorrow I send out my letter to Stephen King's agent, and then we will wait and see if we get a reply. So I might go from reading Desperation to finding something that's older to read, something that's not copywritten. I really need to look up public domain books and see what kind of books they are. Like, there's The Great Gatsby. There's Three Musketeers, The Tale of Two Cities, Oliver Twist, those kind of books. Jane Austen's books. There are so many on the public domain list. You can't even imagine. It's wow. I can just imagine that there's a million books that people could read. And whether or not we want to read any of those is different. So it really depends on whether we want to look up something horror related or we want to look up something. It doesn't even have horror on here. It's the thrillers. It has thrillers on here. That it does. Wow. I don't even know if that's a public domain book, but apparently it is. So public domain books are books where the author has been dead for like a certain amount of years, and you can read them, you can, download them, whatever. The Library of Congress will let you know as well, but sometimes you unfortunately have to pay for that, and no thank you. So Oh, wow. A lot of works from Disney went on to the public domain. And Mickey Mouse expires next year. Apparently, they're working on actually getting that back. The Lord of the Rings public domain? Tolkien, died in 73, will now expire in 43, meaning the Lord of the Rings trilogy and many of his other works will become public domain in 2044. So you would even have to write his publishers, his agents, those who own the books now, to be able to read it online. And the Embracer group is that one. And sometimes, like, the authors find it flattering and they don't care. But other times they are not happy about their stuff being read. So it really just kind of depends on the person themselves, like the author and stuff. So I'm waiting to find out. And if these disappeared, that means, they asked me to take them down, and I'm like, okay. It's not bothering me any. And I've been putting this under reading club. I think it's kind of neat. If you think about it, we're sitting online, right? And we're reading a book. And, I know nobody's talking about it, but we can still be sitting in a reading club and enjoying ourselves. We could all be in the same place. That'd be great, but we're not. So I've asked if we can read. Do I want to make money off these? Nope. Do I plan to? Nope. What am I doing? Enjoying my reading. That's it. I'm sitting here reading with friends. That's what I'm doing. And then I'm throwing them up on YouTube because I can. Why not share them on my YouTube? I don't have anywhere else to share them because I don't have any other video things. But anyway, I'm yawning like crazy. Oh, I apologize. I didn't see the chat. I was just so into reading that I didn't see it. But I will do my best to pay more attention to the chat. Okay. No, and he followed me, so I could always answer him. But I did answer him in there, so I will leave that part up and he will be able to read it later. So I'm going to pray I stop yawning long enough to say what I want to say. I really enjoy y'all coming by. Thank you for watching tonight. Thank you for reading along with me, or at least listening. I really appreciate it. I appreciate y'all following. Appreciate y'all, sitting here with me. Love y'all. I'm going to let you go because I'm yawning, which means it's time for me to go to bed because it's late. It's actually midnight now. So, y'all have a good night or a good day, depending where you're at. And y'all sleep. Love y'all. Bye.